Last night, I passed by a luxury hotel in a major American city, and what I saw inside one ballroom said more about modern relationships than any statistic ever could. It was a high-end singles event, the kind where people spend money just for the chance to meet someone genuine in person. Through the glass entrance, the room looked polished and elegant. Expensive dresses, carefully prepared conversations, soft lighting, and women standing in groups waiting for interaction. But one detail immediately stood out. The men were almost completely absent. For every large group of women, there were only a handful of men scattered around the room, and even those men looked emotionally disconnected, as if they no longer believed in what they were participating in. That image stayed with me because it reflects a growing social reality many people still refuse to acknowledge honestly. Men are not disappearing from dating because they suddenly stopped wanting love, connection, or companionship. They are withdrawing because many of them no longer believe the modern dating system rewards effort, loyalty, or emotional sincerity in a meaningful way anymore. For years, society has pushed the idea that men stop participating in dating because they became immature, intimidated, or emotionally unavailable. But if you actually listen to the average man who quietly checked out of the dating market, you hear something completely different. Most of these men are not angry revolutionaries. They are exhausted, emotionally exhausted, mentally drained, and tired of investing energy into a system that often feels one-sided and emotionally unsafe. These are men who used to approach women, plan dates, initiate conversations, and genuinely try to build something meaningful. But after years of ghosting, rejection without respect, emotional inconsistency, and feeling constantly evaluated like a disposable product, many of them simply reached a psychological breaking point. They performed an internal calculation and concluded that the emotional return no longer matched the effort required. Modern dating often asks men to provide emotional support, financial stability, confidence, entertainment, and endless patience, while simultaneously making them feel easily replaceable. Over time, that creates emotional burnout, and once burnout settles deeply enough, many men stop chasing entirely. Not because they hate women, but because peace begins to feel safer than emotional disappointment repeated over and over again. One of the biggest reasons this shift is happening is because dating apps have transformed relationships into a marketplace driven by constant comparison. What was once a process built on conversation, shared experiences, and gradual emotional connection has become heavily influenced by algorithms, appearance, and instant judgment. Many men spend hours building profiles, sending thoughtful messages, and trying to create genuine conversations, only to receive silence, short replies, or immediate rejection before their personality is even seen. After enough repetition, the experience starts affecting how a man sees himself and how he views relationships entirely. He begins feeling invisible in a system that rewards performance over authenticity. The average hardworking man with a stable job, decent values, and honest intentions often feels overshadowed by louder personalities, curated lifestyles, and unrealistic online standards. Social media makes this even worse by constantly presenting idealized versions of success, beauty, and relationships. Men feel like they are no longer competing within their local communities. They feel like they are competing against celebrities, influencers, wealthy entrepreneurs, and carefully edited fantasies shown on screens every day. Eventually, many men stop asking, "How do I become attractive enough?" and start asking something far more important. Why am I sacrificing my peace to participate in a system that makes genuine connection feel nearly impossible? And once that question settles deeply into the mind, withdrawal begins feeling less like defeat and more like self-protection. The men most affected by this modern dating burnout are often not the irresponsible or reckless ones people constantly criticize online. In many cases, it is the quiet, dependable men who feel the most invisible. These are the men who go to work consistently, pay their bills, improve themselves slowly, and genuinely want a peaceful relationship built on trust and loyalty. But in a culture driven by performance and online attention, stability has become less exciting than emotional stimulation. A man who offers consistency rarely creates viral moments. He does not dominate social media feeds with luxury vacations, dramatic lifestyles, or constant excitement. And because of that, many good men quietly disappear into the background, while attention shifts toward more emotionally intense personalities. Over time, this deeply affects how these men view themselves in the dating world. They begin feeling like they are only considered valuable after years of being ignored. Many spend their 20s watching women choose excitement over stability, only to later seek the very qualities they once overlooked. But by that point, many men have emotionally adapted to solitude. They've built routines, friendships, hobbies, businesses, and peaceful lifestyles that no longer depend on romantic validation. And once a man discovers that his life feels calmer without constant emotional stress, convincing him to re-enter modern dating becomes far more difficult than most people realize. Social media has completely changed how many people experience attraction, attention, and validation. A single post can bring hundreds of compliments, messages, and reactions within minutes, creating an endless cycle of external approval that slowly reshapes expectations in relationships. Over time, real human connection starts competing against digital stimulation, and that competition is incredibly difficult for ordinary relationships to survive. Many men now feel like they are not simply trying to connect with one woman. They feel like they are competing against thousands of online options constantly appearing on her screen every single day. They are competing against influencers, wealthy lifestyles, edited perfection, and the emotional excitement social media delivers instantly. This creates a dangerous illusion where grounded relationships begin feeling emotionally underwhelming compared to online fantasy. A loyal man offering peace, consistency, and emotional support may seem less exciting than the constant attention generated through digital validation. Men notice this shift very clearly. They notice how difficult commitment becomes in a culture addicted to endless options and instant gratification. They notice how attention is often valued more than genuine emotional connection. And many eventually decide they no longer want to fight for a place in someone's life when they constantly feel compared against unrealistic standards. At that point, withdrawal stops feeling lonely. It begins feeling liberating. Many men would rather protect their emotional stability than constantly compete inside an environment where authenticity feels less valuable than performance, attention, and online image management. Economic pressure has also become a major reason many men are quietly stepping away from modern dating. Life has become significantly more expensive, and for the average man, survival itself already requires enormous mental and financial discipline. Housing costs continue rising, groceries are more expensive, fuel prices increase constantly, and career pressure has intensified to levels previous generations rarely experienced. Because of this, many men now look at dating through a completely different lens. A single night out is no longer just a casual social experience. It represents time, energy, emotional investment, and financial risk. And when previous experiences often ended in ghosting, emotional games, or short-term situationships, many men begin questioning whether the investment even makes practical sense anymore. Instead of spending money trying to impress people who may not genuinely value them, they choose to invest in themselves. They focus on fitness, business ideas, personal growth, travel, or creating stable futures. To them, those investments feel more predictable and emotionally rewarding than navigating a dating culture filled with uncertainty. What surprises many men is the peace they discover once they stop chasing validation. Without constant emotional stress, many feel mentally lighter and more focused. They sleep better, think clearer, and experience less anxiety overall. Eventually, solitude stops feeling like isolation. It starts feeling like freedom. And once a man experiences a peaceful life built around stability and self-respect, he becomes extremely selective about who he allows into that environment emotionally. One of the deepest psychological shifts happening among men today is the realization that constant emotional chaos is not normal, healthy, or necessary for a meaningful life. Many men grew up believing relationships automatically required sacrifice, stress, emotional confusion, and endless compromise. But after repeated negative experiences, they began questioning whether modern relationships were actually improving their lives or quietly draining them. A growing number of men discovered something unexpected after stepping away from the dating scene. Their mental clarity improved, their confidence returned, their finances stabilized. They had more energy for their goals, their health, and the people who genuinely valued them. And perhaps most importantly, they realized they no longer felt emotionally anxious every day. This experience has created what many men privately describe as peace addiction. Once someone spends enough time living in a calm environment without emotional instability constantly disrupting their life, returning to dysfunction becomes incredibly unattractive. Many men are no longer searching for excitement, they are searching for emotional safety, consistency, respect, and calmness. They want relationships that feel supportive rather than emotionally exhausting. This does not mean men no longer desire love or companionship. It means they have become more protective of their emotional energy. They are no longer willing to tolerate relationships where they constantly feel criticized, undervalued, manipulated, or emotionally disposable. And this psychological shift changes everything, because a man who no longer fears being alone becomes extremely difficult to pressure into accepting unhealthy relationship dynamics simply for the sake of companionship or social approval. Another major reason for the growing disconnect between men and women is the collapse of emotional reciprocity. Many men feel that relationships have slowly shifted away from partnership and toward performance. Instead of feeling appreciated for who they are, they often feel valued mainly for what they can provide, emotionally, financially, or socially. A man is expected to be confident but never vulnerable for too long. He is expected to lead but never make mistakes. He is expected to provide emotional reassurance constantly, while receiving very little emotional understanding in return. Over time, this creates emotional fatigue that slowly destroys his motivation to participate. Modern dating culture also made emotional replacement feel incredibly easy. In previous generations, relationships existed within stronger communities, families, and social circles. Today, someone can disappear from your life instantly with a block button and never speak to you again. That level of disposability deeply affects how seriously many men are willing to invest emotionally. Men who genuinely value loyalty and commitment struggle in environments where emotional attachment feels temporary and unstable. They no longer trust that effort automatically leads to meaningful connection. Instead, many feel they are constantly one mistake away from being emotionally discarded. This has caused many men to become highly cautious about emotional investment. They now evaluate relationships based on peace, consistency, and mutual respect rather than attraction alone. And once a man begins prioritizing emotional stability over emotional excitement, the modern dating environment starts looking less like an opportunity and more like a risk that may not be worth taking anymore psychologically. The younger generation of men is being shaped by this environment in ways society still does not fully understand. Many young men are entering adulthood already emotionally defensive before they even begin dating seriously. They grew up watching online conflict between men and women every single day. They watch public humiliations, viral relationship failures, divorce battles, and endless social media debates that painted relationships as emotionally dangerous territory. As a result, many young men are becoming increasingly cautious about emotional vulnerability. They focus heavily on career growth, fitness, financial stability, gaming communities, or online spaces where the rules feel clearer and the emotional risks feel lower. To many of them, modern dating feels unpredictable and psychologically exhausting before it even starts. They feel constant pressure to meet changing expectations while also fearing rejection, embarrassment, or emotional manipulation. And because they witnessed older men becoming financially drained, emotionally broken, or deeply stressed by unhealthy relationships, many young men are choosing avoidance as a form of protection. At the same time, social media continues pushing unrealistic standards onto both genders. Average men compare themselves against the top percentage of wealthy and highly attractive men constantly displayed online. This creates feelings of inadequacy that quietly damage confidence over time. Many of these young men are not giving up on life. They are simply redirecting their energy away from relationships and toward areas where effort still feels connected to predictable results, personal progress, and emotional peace rather than confusion and instability. What we are witnessing is not just a temporary dating trend, it is a major cultural shift in how many men view relationships, identity, and self-worth. More men are beginning to realize that their value does not come from being chosen by someone else. It comes from the life they build, the discipline they maintain, and the standards they refuse to compromise. For a long time, many men were taught that happiness would automatically arrive once they found the right relationship. But now, countless men are discovering fulfillment through purpose, health, brotherhood, financial stability, and peace of mind. And once a man becomes emotionally fulfilled on his own, he stops tolerating relationships that disturb his stability rather than improve it. This does not mean good relationships no longer exist. They absolutely do. There are still women who value loyalty, respect, warmth, emotional reciprocity, and genuine partnership. And those women will always stand out because they offer something increasingly rare in modern culture: emotional peace instead of emotional chaos. But the average man is no longer blindly chasing attention or validation. He is evaluating carefully. He is protecting his time, his finances, and his mental well-being far more seriously than previous generations did. The biggest mistake society keeps making is assuming men disappeared because they became weak. In reality, many men walked away because they finally learned the value of their own peace. And once someone truly respects their peace, they stop begging to be accepted inside systems that constantly drain their spirit. They start building lives so grounded and fulfilling that any future relationship must become an addition to that peace, not a replacement for it. Do well to subscribe because you are important.